everyone to Kiss Meets the Podcast. I'm Rick Clausen. All right, and as you see, we have a very special guest with us this week. None other than former head of Kiss Security, also Iron Maiden, Billy Idol, many other groups. The great Big John Harte. Welcome, John.
Hey.
We're doing great. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. My pleasure.
So John has a book coming out this summer, and you can head over to the PledgeMusic.com website, which we will put a link in the description, and I'll put it here on the screen as well, and we've posted on the Facebook page. Go check that out. Can't wait to read it ourselves. Ready to find out all your history, some of your backstories. Plus, I've noticed on the Pledge Music page, you've got a lot of really cool perks that come along with the different packages and all that. So, if you want to tell us a little more about that.
Well, the packages we started to put together, and I wound up getting in touch with Ken Kelly, who did the artwork for Destroyer and Rock and Roll Over, I think? I forget. But Love Gun. Mm. And we approached him and said, would you be interested? And he said yes. And then our next apprehension was, what's it going to cost me? And he was actually quite fair, which was great. So he's going to do the artwork, and he's agreed, as he starts to sketch it out, he's going to give us a couple of roughs, and then they will make lists of the final product, and the final product itself will be for sale. So, that's part of what's on the packages. I'm going to do some T-shirts. Of course, there's going to be signings of the book, personalized signings of the book. There's some good stuff. If they go there to check it out, there's some things that I think they'll find interesting that maybe somebody else hasn't offered in regard to that. And that's about it for that. What other questions you got?
Well, I'm definitely trying to decide which package I want myself. There's a lot of cool stuff on there. Yeah, exactly. Buy them all. And then I've noticed you've been posting, little extra perks on there as far as like video clips, and you shared some never before seen footage before. And
yeah.
So is that just like a taste of things to come? Or are you sitting on a lot of stuff?
We're trying to, my approach to the book, I didn't want to do this for years. A friend of mine, now my business partner, Steve, who you spoke to, he's been after me to do this for quite some time, and I always had excuses. First it was I'm working, I'm busy. Then I got sick with cancer, I can't do it now. Then I got sick with my heart, and but then I started recovering from that, and I couldn't go back to work. I was the doctor put me out. He said, no, you can't go back to work. So Steve said, well, you no longer have any excuses. It's time to do the book. So I said, yeah, okay, begrudgingly. And we were kicking the idea around and how we want to approach it. And my first statements were, well, I don't want to do a book about, it's not going to be slanderous or salacious. I don't see that being of any interest to the band. I mean, there's been enough publicity about Gene's womanizing and Ace and Peter's carousing that doesn't need to be dwelt on. But there is stories to share about all of that stuff that maybe would shed it in a different light and see some of the funny parts that happen, because of all of that. And then I also had a thing come to me. I did a few of the Kiss Expos, very, very sparingly. I never knew they existed. And I did a couple this year, and was able to be on the boat ride this year, which was fantastic. The people were great. The respect that I was given was just mind-boggling. It's about Cuba, and we were just humbled by the way we were approached by the Kiss fans. But as far as the book itself goes, we wanted to make it. People asked me, said, well, it must have been great hanging out with the band. And, yeah, essentially, yeah. But I'm not a fan. I was not a fan when I started working for them. To me, it was a paycheck. It was a job. It's something that I wanted to do. So putting that perspective, and then, a lot of people have the misconception that all we did was hang out and party. we all have things to do. The band has to play. I have a bunch of responsibilities that will be discussed in the book that perhaps people didn't understand and or know about. You know, there's the logistics involved, moving the band around. As they became more popular, it was, well, how do we keep them covered up and out of the spotlight, but yet again in the spotlight? Because you still got to get to places. So, and then, of course, they wanted to be humanized to a way where they want to go out and party too, you know, en masse, you know, to go to a club or go see another band. How do we make that work so that, first of all, they're not bothered, and second of all, they don't get sniped picture-wise? So all those things had to be taken into consideration, you know, first on a daily basis, and then, you know, we would format perhaps some working scenarios that would work for all of those situations, or at least for each one individually. So that's going to be in the book. Also, it's going to be how I got into the business, you know, what I did before that, and then why I wanted to do it, and the you know, like back in the 70s or late 60s, early 70s, everything was about music. You know, wherever you lived, you had a clique of people, or you had a group of friends, or you were high school, where people, you know, all they talked about was music. That was the thing. Even though there was music, I mean, even though there was movies and some other distractions, sports, everybody talked about music. The Beatles made that promise. They by their successes, made music the most important thing in our lives back then. I was fortunate enough to live in the New York, New Jersey area, so I get to Manhattan in 20 minutes. At that time, there was 4 or 5 to go and see acts. There was the Fillmore in New York, which was a famous place. That was about 1,000-seater. And every place those venues. So you really got to see people in an intimate setting, and you've seen for what they were, you know, whatever the band, you know, be it Paradise. Anyway, folky type people and rock and people who message music, all that stuff. So you got to see them in a special way. After the weekend was over, that's what we talked about. You went and see how you were impressed, how you weren't impressed. And there was one place called The Bottom Line. And if you made it to there, then your next step was going to be the Fillmore stuff. Your career was going to take off. That was like the bounce point, the judgment area. That's what we did, and I always found it intriguing. I wanted to be a part of that. I was a band for a while, you know, garage band, stuff like that. But back then, everybody had what we did. But I didn't have the heart for it. That's what 9,000 others doing in my neighborhood. So I said, there's got to be a work for bands. So I started investigating that, and I got hired in '72. I played the World Stadium, and the fellow who hired me, he also ran a place in my hometown, called the Cal Theater. So I went to work all places, and from there I started to manipulate whatever aspect of business was available, within those confines. It was working other venues, being a stagehand. I learned how to run spotlights. I learned how to run table. I learned how to run, and the overall dealing with the people at the time, the fence, the business people. You know, you can't learn firsthand. You can't judge a book by its cover. I had to run in one night with some guy who just looked everybody like every other in town, and he turned out he was a big-time record rep. So I got my ass chewed out for that. Even though with an emphasis put on the importance to whatever my job was, there's still a way to go about it. And that carried through all my career. Even when I worked for when I was first, you know, 2 of the guys the same age as me, born the same year. Gene was slightly older. Peter was older yet, but we're all relatively in the same age block, and we're young yet, so we grew together, you know, individuals. And but the whole time that was going on, I myself would always keep it in my head that, you know, friendly things, you know, share certain interests. They were still my employers. I think that's why I had great success with them and others, because I kept that line where I didn't assume, oh, you're my friend, so I can get away with murder, or I can get drunk about you. And that was not the case, at least for me. I didn't think that was correct, and I didn't want to conduct myself that way.
Absolutely. You think some questions there already. So how did you first get the job with KISS, and then also, you know, what was your first assignment when you started working with the band?
Okay, so hired me off the ticket line while I'm working for the band. His name's Stewart. I had expressed to him early on that I had interest in going on the road. I wanted to do it. I like to travel. At least I thought I did, and I do. But I hadn't done much traveling. But the opportunity presented itself intrigued. So he went to KISS, and about 6 months out there, maybe a little bit, he gave a call. He said, "You're still interested in going on?" I said, "Yes." So this band that I'm working for, I'd like to hire a security fellow. You know, interested? I said, "Sure." So I interviewed with the band that was showed it, and talked with Bill Corn. And of course, time the manager was Smalling. So I had known previously as well from my other work. So him and Rick were on board. The band, I know, the redeeming, or the deciding factor was Bill Coyne. And he hired me with their blessings. And the first things, my first responsibilities were I rode with the crew, the immediate crew, on the bus. And I would get to the venues and the hotels before the band did. So I had a couple of trifold jobs. I would go to the hotels first, get some sleep myself, and make sure that their room lists were ready, keys were ready. When the band got there, I would hand that out individually. And then once they were tucked away or whatever, I would go over to the gig. And I would do the venue security. I'd make sure that they were on board with what we wanted to have done during the show, how we wanted things handled, and passes and access and all those type of things. And I did that for the first 3 or 4 months. After we, and in Europe as well. When we come back from Europe, originally that's what I was hired up to. I was hired for Europe, but they put me to work right at the end of '75, and I did all the shows leading up to going to Europe. Did Europe. So at that point, I thought, well, the show, this is over. I got to look for something else. But they called me and said, no, you're coming back here, and then that turned into an 8 or 9 year love affair.
Very cool.
But then of course my interest changed somewhat in my job. I still had responsibilities of getting it done, but I didn't have to travel with the crew. We had an advanced man, so he took care of the keys. But I would be with the band more often, and then I would still have to go to the venue to check it out, make sure it's right. But that's it. Then the rest was just as they grew, we grew.
Very cool. Luke, go ahead if you got something you want to ask.
I'm curious, was there ever a point prior to you working with KISS that you went and saw them play, and what was your reaction, if so? I
did have the pleasure of seeing them play a couple of times, because the venues I worked in, they played. The one venue only 2,500 seats, another one was 1,500. So I got to see them. I wasn't that much impressed by it. I wasn't my type of music. I'm an older guy. I was into Allman Brothers and Grateful Dead and the Eagles, all that kind of thing. Crosby, Stills and Nash.
That's awesome.
My heart lay. But I wasn't disparaging about them or like, oh, I couldn't work for them. It didn't matter. They were something new, something that I really didn't understand presentation-wise. But there was other bands out there doing other, we'll call it strange things, like the Dolls, and the Ramones started to come up then. So you heard about these different factions. So it wasn't for me to say that they were wrong, or even that I didn't like them. Some of the stuff I wound up liking a lot. I liked the earlier stuff because I found it more edgy. But that I didn't actually. I wasn't a fan, say, when I went. I'm more of a fan of them today, and that's on more musically still.
Absolutely. So do you still keep in touch with the guys like JR and Rick?
JR, I have a number for him. I haven't been successful in tracking him down. The number is good, but he don't answer. Rick Stewart I talked to about a month ago. I still talk to some of the crew. Chris Postle, who was the sound tech, maybe a road manager. Jeff Stewart, who was a road manager. We're fast friends. So the truck drivers I'm still in touch with. They don't like rock and roll bands. They're still driving, crazy people. Was in touch with Evil before he had passed away. I talked to Lydia. I have phone numbers on all the band units. Like all the names. And Gene. But Gene, your phone, you have to email. Well, he doesn't respond. I used to see Bill Coyne occasionally because he wound up living down here, and I didn't know that for a couple of years. I seen Fonny Anderson, who also lived down here, and he was production manager at one point. And he lived in Fort Lauderdale, which is that far from me. So I do, like for a long time I was in business, so I have a regular job and all that kind of thing. You don't have time to talk about those things, or like it's somebody up on your schedule. That I ran security company for a good 13 years, I think it was. And during that, he played a couple of days before Halloween, and I was doing a big affair in South Beach where we had Thomas Eglin and somebody else like Monster type for this open 2 club was called Heaven, called Hell. We went down here at the South Beach Grill South, and we put up tents and recesses, and the Pointers, and Joe Piscopo, and a plethora of acts. I was there, and I walked off, and on the walkie-talkie, is this Bo or is this Zoe? And I went, oh, nobody knew that but she and Bo, because that's what I used to call it. I was like, where are you? And they said, we're here. I said, well, come in. Now, this is not my party. I had nothing to do with this thing, except on security. The owner, he comes over and he says, who are these people? I said, they're friends of mine. It's the band Kiss. I'm in trouble. I said, it won't be. We sat down and we caught up, and the first time I met Eric Sir. And it was nice to see them. And it was nice that they went out of their way to see me.
Yeah.
Since then, we've corresponded throughout the rest of the year. Like I said, I was on the cruise this past year. It was tremendous. And I spoke with them there, and I remember speaking with Paul going, remember we used to about being 50 years old and run around in tights? Yeah, well, there you go. I said, I know. And just the response that you see from the fans and the age category. You know, people, kids. That used to happen back then with their babies when we used to yell at the mothers. Oh, are you stupid? Well, get away from the front of the stage. These kids, these speakers are going to ruin your kid's ears. Why do you depend? I said, fine, but your kid doesn't do that. You know, you're a little bitty baby. So that was what he pointed with me. But yeah, it's just tremendous. You know, if you look at that, and give me a big echo in Atlanta. And he said, would you have thought back then that this thing would still be going on? First killed Buck, they mentioned that on the cruise. You know, he said, would you think we would be here and the band would be in the back? You know, of course not. You know, we were short-sighted then, and even the band itself, they predicted what is like. You know, they can treat people well after most part, and you know, they're philanthropic areas, well, economy and everything. You know, they're a thing. And so their mind always had been about it. They always considered it, you know, a party. Even when I got on the ship there, and I talked to him briefly about what it was all about, he said, well, quite frankly, we don't do it for the money. We have enough money. We the fans basically really enjoyed it. We did one, and right after that was over, we had immediately to find out when the next one was. So it was sort of now. He said, as far as he said, we do it because we like it. We like the fact of playing people and you know, being out there. He said, financially, you know, they don't really need much money. They have a nice style, and they're thankful for that. Paul is very humble in speaking with me. And, you know, he's very thankful for the fact that, you know, what God gave him, you know, and they're happy to hear it. I say, and he says, you know, when he talked again, he said, bring our families, and we're here for 4 or 5 days, it's a great time. Everybody seems to be good. And they'll keep doing what they can as long as everybody's doing. Yeah. I believe it's sold out. Got Ace on the boat with him, and Bruce and Bobby Kulick. So that should be a real interesting situation. It should be there. Yeah. That could be real cool. You know, for Ace and Kulick, it could be real nice.
That's something people's been waiting on for years to be on.
I bet.
And it's gotten, I believe, for time. So, I mean, it's definitely not slowing down.
No.
Now, mentioning the Atlanta Expo with Vinnie, now, that was the first time you'd Southern, what, was it 30s? I'm sorry?
That was the first time I've been since June of '83.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
So,
I'd seen him after that. When I was out there, he come down to show home. Where, the only thing I think there with his wife and kids. No, just his wife, kids. So, yeah, it was interesting to see him. I heard all kinds of stories about Vinnie in various capacities. I don't know whether they're true or not to his situation or what was going on. I know he made a real effort to go in depth about what those situations were. And I thought that was a really big deal for some people. I mean, it's a very open situation, and I don't think I would do that. I'll give him credit for that. What'll happen after that? You know, I spoke to him last week. He talked to Rob Fleischman. He talked about the Vinnie Vincent invasion press. So we're at. So it's to come. So Gene, I asked him to come out to a vault situation, or whatever, at Nashville. He may do that. And maybe it's time for him to out of the butcher and get back in the swing of things.
Exactly.
I mean, musically, you know, the band they were playing with, never gone away, you know, for the most part. And that was cool. You know, so that means there's still infinite styles of music. And hopefully, for his sake,
yeah, I went away just watching the video clips too, but now, with the Indianapolis Expo coming up in May, I know it's pretty booked right now, but is there any chance maybe you can be there? The Indianapolis Expo is coming up in May, and it's pretty tight right now, but is there any taller chance that maybe you added to it?
I was told that I'm in the works.
Awesome, that would be pretty cool.
You know, I expect the cycle because 20 anniversary, and you have Prelude's Comet Band, and you have Bruce of the Beat, both Julie brothers, and there's a possibility that A play with them, or vice versa. So, from band standpoint, it's going to be a great album.
Yeah.
A lot of good stuff. For me, I just be out here.
Exactly. It's a blast every year. I love it. We'll definitely go there, so it'd be awesome if we're able to meet in person.
As a matter of fact, the first expo I ever did was that one.
Oh, yeah.
In Indianapolis. I guess it was about at least 5 years ago, maybe more. And I do one for a long, long
Luke, you got another?
So many swirling around in the head, but none. Yeah. No, by all means, if you got more.
Well, I just have to throw something out. I'm a huge Allman Brothers fan also, and you mentioned that earlier. You said you went to the Fillmore. Did you see them back in the...
I came in '71 when they were live at the...
Oh, my God. That's awesome.
I got to meet with them. I got to meet the road crew more. And then went into business in '73. I got to work a lot of shows with them, and I wound up the tour manager put me to work for them on East Coast. He said, anytime we play a show, anywhere we can get to, as you come, you'll work that day. And I did. And I got to know them real well. And all the people that were in their organization. They're pretty cool. The road crew were characters. He was retired. He was a piece of work for it.
Well, they had a couple things with them.
He had a collection of rat skulls that he wore as a necklace. I never understood that, but he was happy with it. And, he called him Red Dog because of his hair color. But he was, as big as my pinky. He was very tall and not very big at all. Man, he could move some cases.
Now, is there going to be any talk about that stuff in the book, or is this going to focus more?
Yeah. Well, no, all that stuff. It's about my career.
Yeah.
It's not just this.
Right.
And stories about all of those things. And the thing about how I did business and what I tried to do. And I did. I actually, when I first got involved in working at these venues, I did stagehand work. I said, teach me how to run a spotlight. I can't really stormtroopers and super troopers. We definitely the mother. That's how it went in spotlight. When I run 30 millimeter detector, I went to work for a company SIR in New York, delivering instruments to people recording or holding our television, work on stuff. So I learned about instruments altogether. I told David Bromberg taught me how to string mandolin. Anyway, they're gauged on one package, and it's like a bass. The biggest string is reversed. Wow. And I have to figure out. So all of those things because I really wanted to be involved. I didn't know in what aspect yet, or didn't see a clear path. But I figured the more I knew, the more valuable I was.
Absolutely.
And the more people I met, the better opportunity I may have.
That's right.
So, that's what I did.
So, one thing that fascinates me, and this will veer away from KISS just for a little bit, you spent time with Prince, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, what time frame was that? And
So I believe it was 1987, the beginning of that. It was his Love Sexy tour, and I was hired to do Europe, and then they carried me over into the States. What I did for Prince, I wasn't a personal bodyguard for him. I was the venue security man. So I would go, and he was very particular about what he wanted done. He had this, they still do like open air festival type seating in Europe. And he was very concerned about the fans being crushed up against the stage, as has happened in many other shows of his and other people. So we wound up contracting every piece of stage a company called Upstaging had. It was a part of U2's management. And we built 3 consecutive barricades in front of the stage, like a horseshoe shape. And I had printed up like hospital bands in various colors and put Love Sexy on it. And when you would come in, as you were led into the venue, you filled in to the front part of the barricade, if that's where you wanted to be, and you were given a wristband. We put it on you, and then we guesstimated at how many people we wanted to put in there. When it looked comfortable but full, we moved to the next section, and then the third section. And then from that point, then everybody was behind it, and it wasn't as big a crush, because we still had that outer barrier wall where you stood on it on the ground. The plates went 8 to 10 feet into the crowd that was behind them. So if you come up to that barricade wall, and there's 4 or 5 people behind you, all that weight is on that barricade. So it's pretty much hard to move. The only problem that we encountered in Europe was the first show. And it was one of the Scandinavian places. I want to say Norway, but I might be incorrect. The fire marshal came. It was an outdoor show, and the barricade was erected. And he did not want that in front of the stage. His feelings were, well, if the stage catches fire, or there's a fire in front of the house, those people can't get away, easily. So, I mean, I didn't have much of an argument with him, so he disbanded it, but then he wound up placing it all over the venue, which was crazy, because now I have people who can pick them up and move them and, possibly hurt other people with them. So but after that, it ran smoothly.
Very cool. So, okay, so jumping back to Kiss, you shared a really funny Eric Carr story recently. Can you tell us another one of your favorite Eric Carr stories? Because I know he was...
I tell you. There's more than one, so...
Oh, I'm sure there's tons of them.
It doesn't matter. I can just tell the one I want to.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember first. Okay. Eric was really a very likable guy. He was a lot of fun, and he was happy like a 12-year-old. He was just happy all the time. He was happy to be in the band. He was a Kiss fan. So he wanted to be in the band of his dreams, and being on tour and being a rock star. And he loved it. And he wasn't a pretentious person, though. Like, he didn't play the rock star. People came to him and talked to him fine. But he didn't walk around strutting or none of that shit. He was pretty well easygoing and appreciative of the fans. But he was Gene's foil. He respected everybody, and he wanted to be worldly, like myself. We were in France, in Lyon. He always tried to learn a few words, communicate, some self-education. At the table in the restaurant in the hotel, every time to play breakfast. And every time he wants to learn how to say butter, French. Unfortunately, he asked Gene, without batting an eye, his word. Well, sapouche. And I remember, it was that first of all, and ever says it 3 or 4 times, looking at Gene. And the one who was waiting on us comes over, and he looks at the woman, sapouche, s'il vous plaît. And she just ignored everything. He had no idea what he was saying. And he tried it again. And he was smiling. The night he was. And of course, we all started to laugh, because whether you knew the language or not, you knew that wasn't it. And we all got to laugh, and so did he. He would always do that anyway. He'd have me, and he knew he wasn't going to hit with him. He'd like to have fun, as surly as he could be. But if he found an area where he would get under your skin or whatever, he'd definitely put it in life. If he knew he could make you upset, he'll do it. Just to ruin your day for a while.
Yeah, the road getting to, so you got to keep it light.
In all honesty, that is a definite truism. I mean, you're constantly on the move. Your body clock is out of whack. You're eating food sometimes that you really don't like, or you're eating it because it's there. There is nothing else at the venues and stuff. So you try to at least put some humor in your life and have a good time with it, because otherwise you go crazy. I remember when I was in Paris with Gene, with the band, first tour I did with him in Europe. We went and seen Jerry Lewis. Jerry Lewis played the Olympia Theater, I believe it was called. We played there in the afternoon. Jerry Lewis was there that evening. One of consecutive nights. The Parisians think Jerry Lewis is better than sliced bread. Or was, God bless him, he's dead. But we couldn't understand the fascination. Jerry Lewis to us, he was a great comedic entity, but he was pretty much slapstick and stuff like that. So we didn't understand the attraction. So we had to go. We went to the show, and they were just, at all the bits that he would do, the typewriter thing, nice lady, gasolino, all of that stuff. They were eating that shit up. So when we left, I have Gene and Paul with me, and we're walking down the street, and Gene goes into his rendition of Jerry Lewis for about 20 minutes. Nice lady, all that kind of thing, and all we do is laugh. But that was our comic relief, because it's stressful, especially the first tour we did. It was the first time in Europe. It was, they had just started to become headliners before we left the States. Things were getting good there. So we get to Europe, and it's not quite the same, even though they're headliners. We're, the production quality was way off. And I just think that's just because it took longer for them to catch up after the Beatle invasion or the British invasion to how production should be. We had problems with getting meals and getting soft drinks for the dressing rooms. We'd get there for sound check, So if you're looking for a Coke, you could die. And if you found one, it was probably warm as toast. So, you know, those things, they just help to add to your anxiety in a foreign place. Plus, as American as we all were at that time, you know, Americanism only goes so far. You know, and if you don't speak the language, sometimes you're just not going to be able to communicate. And you have to accept that. It's hard to do because you want to say, what's the matter with you? Don't you understand English? And of course, it's not your place to do that. So it made things difficult. But then you get happy about the odd things, like having real French fries. You know, pommes frites, big deal there in France and most other places, Belgium as well. And, you know, real German beer and, you know, having hamburgers and hamburgers, all that kind of thing sort of lightens your day and makes you look at things differently.
Absolutely. Luke, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm still caught up in the Eric Carr story. Yeah. I was thinking, were you around the guys in Kiss enough when they had Eric Carr and Vinnie Vincent to get any idea of how relations between all of them were? You know.
Yes and no. You know, I wasn't the first guy they would communicate with about anything, meaning Gene and Paul. Eric and Vinnie, a little bit quicker, but wouldn't divulge too much. With Eric, again, he was just so happy, and he sort of understood his role in the beginning, and he just went along with it. And like with Eric, Ace was there at the beginning. So, you know, when all the shit started to happen with Ace, with the Elder, and all that kind of thing, he was kind of awkward with that. So I remember sitting at Ace's house, we were recording, and he was like looking at me going, what is this all about? Is this normal? You know, and I had to say, no, it's not. There's tensions here that I don't understand. I said, I know a little bit about them, and I shared them with Eric. I said, but I don't know what the outcome's going to be. I don't know what the solutions are. And, of course, the end result was Ace, you know, left the band. And, you know, but he had wanted out for a while, evidently. And, you know, once the album was released, The Elder, he wasn't crazy about that at all. He didn't like the direction of the album. He didn't think it was Kiss-worthy as far as what he thought the band had become and represented. So he had big problems with it. And that, of course, came out in all the doings there. Vinnie Vincent, when he was hired, now this is the second turmoil that the band is going through. And I think pretty much because they had contractual agreements with the record company, they had to get out there and tour. Somehow they talked Ace into being involved with a promo tour, and yeah, so that solidified their stuff with the record company. But Vinnie Vincent, when they brought him in, what they wanted from him was like a generic player. They didn't really want somebody who was going to show them how talented they were or wanted to write a billion songs with them. And Vinnie was definitely in that frame of mind. He wanted to show them how good he was, or how good he thought he was, and that he had something to contribute other than just being another guy in makeup. But I think the riffs started with him and the band, with, you know, his pursuit of those endeavors before they were ready. You know, that Creatures tour was the first one he did. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You know, that they just wanted somebody to come out there and play, not be Ace, but play your part. Let's get this over with, and then we're going to sit down and regroup, and we'll go further. But they wanted to get that area done, because, you know, as it turned out, the tour wasn't well received. You know, the attendance was off in a lot of markets, so that made for even more anxiety. So, you know, what happened after that? They took the makeup off. They seen where it went. You know, and I think that was part of them saying, well, you know, we wore this for X amount of years. Maybe it's time to take it off. Let's see what happens then. I wasn't there for that. You know, I was already gone. But I think it was probably something along those lines. They were trying to rethink themselves. Because let's face it, the musical direction changes for everybody. You know, look at the Beatles. You know, they changed hats a number of times. And you know, eventually that was their demise. They all had different outlooks. Didn't want to tour anymore because it wasn't fun. You know, they were hounded by everyone. They couldn't hear themselves.
Right.
You know, when they did play. So that's upsetting because as a musician, you're bringing stuff to the table that you want to share. And when you think you can't get that point across, or it's just not good for you, then why do you want to do it? So again, that goes back to a couple of things I said about this band and what went on there. And then, you know, what eventually transpired with Vinnie and them, I don't know because I wasn't there. But, you know, I would think that part of him that wound up coming out in Vinnie Vincent, what the hell do they call that? Invasion. That, you know, if you listen to that stuff, you can see where he wanted to go musically. And I don't think Gene and Paul were on board with that. So that gave him, you know, anxiety attacks. I've heard him say at this recent Expo that there was a financial situation as well that I wasn't privy to. I don't know. But if that was the case, then, you know, of course, that's always somebody's problem. That's the reason why I left. Not that I didn't get paid well, but I was hired and I was a salaried employee or full-time employee for all the years I worked there. And then at the beginning of '83, I was told that management's changing somewhat in the policies that they have. There's going to be no more full-time employees. So after the tour, I was done contractually. And if I wanted to work for somebody else, I could. Or if I'm going to be home and they need me, they'll call me. Same thing with the next tour. There was no obligation. So that's the way it was. And that's how I wound up being with Iron Maiden.
Was that at the time when they switched to Glickman Marks?
Oh, Glickman Marks were already there. Glickman Marks had been involved since 1976.
That's right, yes.
Okay, but they didn't have the role that they wound up playing. And again, as much as they learned about the music industry from being involved with this, they still didn't know a lot. And I think that was to their detriment, for the band's detriment in the end. Because they didn't know how to understand things. You know, they didn't have a pulse on it. They were advertising guys and accountants. You know, they were great for getting the band involved in investments and things of that nature. But as far as the overall musical aspects, they weren't so sharp.
Yeah, you know, with Vinnie, like you were saying, as far as I understood, you know, he was very influenced by Randy Rhoads, Eddie Van Halen, those guys. So, you know, I can understand the frustration with, you know, you're wanting to do your thing and you're being held back at the same time.
Right, and I don't even think that he was wanting to do his thing separate from them. He wanted to show them that he was worthy, more or less. You know, hey, I got chops, I can do this. And because he wound up doing extended solos and things like that wasn't on the card at that time. And yeah, he wanted to be able to, you know, if the financial thing was rough, then I'm sure he wanted to get involved with writing, because at least you get some credits, you make more money. You know, so, you know, I think there was a combination of things, you know, of his wants and their needs that just didn't jive.
Now, kind of going back a little farther again, when the Kiss Meets the Phantom movie happened, were you on set at any time for that?
Was there for the whole thing, except the concert scene. The concert footage was filmed the week I got married. But I did everything else, and that, boy, was that disaster. You know, once it started filming, you're locked in. You know, there was too much money at stake to say, oh, screw this. But we chuckled amongst ourselves what was going on, and realized that a couple of them really aren't great actors, scripted wise, and it was tough for them as well. You know, they were, you know, again, you have the concept, and Gene was real big on it. He sold it to Paul. Paul was okay with it, and I think the other two just got on board, thinking it's going to be like Superman, you know. But the writing was hideous, as far as I'm concerned, which just has no bearing on it. But I thought it sucked. And the presentation, you know, how they pursued it and filmed it, I didn't think was all that great. I seen the end result, and, you know, I turned it off quickly. Just you know, just wasn't there. And I think that's because of the inexperience of all the band guys making that type of thing. The only thing that I know that they did previous to that that was as extensive, or somewhat extensive, was the Paul Lynde Halloween special. That was also scripted, but it wasn't as confining. It wasn't. They didn't have to represent a different aspect. They were themselves. They hated doing that show as well, as far as what went on. You know, in the movie world and television world, the actors are like on the bottom rung. It's the union people first, and that's who matters. And then, like, they were being brought there at 6 in the morning, had to get in makeup straight away, and then sit around for maybe 5 hours before one of them would be needed on stage. So that drove them nuts. Just because you can't go anywhere, you got to stay in that relative area. It was done on Universal Studios, I think, and you know there's a commissary there and all that kind of thing, and they bring you up, you know, things from the green room to have in your dressing room, but it's very confining, and the fact that you're in their eyes wasting so much time. You know, can't we just get dressed and go out there and play this song and see us all later? That's just not how it works, and that was difficult. But I mean, that's when he started to learn about how things are done in the film and TV world. You know, you're up at dawn, you stay till late, and then you're back again the following day for that. And if you're in a movie or a TV show, then a series, then that's like 5 or 6 days out of the week you're doing it. You know, it's very grueling. But then again, it's not physical; it's just the schedule. But yeah, they weren't crazy about that either. But the movie itself, the concept was great. It was based around the comic book, or it's going to be comic book, and I think the translation got lost somewhere as far as how to go about portraying that.
Something I've always been curious about, maybe you know or not, are there any deleted scenes that are out there that you know of that were filmed?
Deleted from the movie?
Yes.
There's a possibility, because I'm sure, I'm almost positive that everything didn't wind up in the movie. I mean, every movie gets edited, so
right.
That winds up on the cutting room floor. Now, if somebody had the foresight to collect that and maybe keep it for a while and realize if they splice it together they can put it out, maybe. But I don't think I don't know of any for sure.
Okay. The reason I asked is I have a copy of the script, and there is a bunch of lines in there that isn't in the movie. Right. So it got me wondering, like, there has to be.
That may have been stricken right from the day, depending on the...
Right.
Edit, but it depends on if it was all of them, it depends on how well it flowed between all of them. If it was just one or two individuals, then it depended on how they were handling the line. Some people are more natural at reading shit and remembering it than others.
Absolutely. So, at that time, everyone knew that the band there was a lot of friction at the time. Not to bring up too much of the trash, you don't have to talk about it if you don't want, but did you witness any of that friction, or have you had to personally break up anything? Or?
There was, for a long time, there was always friction between what we call the Jews and the Gentiles. Okay, Gene and Paul are Jewish, Ace and Peter are not. So, by 77, leading into that tour, you could start to see these little animosities show up. Like I said, Gene, if he knew he can get under your skin, would. Ace and Peter would retaliate. And it just started this headbutting routine. And, I'm sure you heard this line, go away from me, you smell like Ace's breath. He doesn't like alcohol. But that's how we were related. So, if you hear that often enough in the day, you're going to get pissed off. And same thing for Peter. He had some things to say about Peter. And you didn't know where it was going to come. We all hoped it would work itself out, but, obviously it did not. And as things progressed. There was a lot more tongue lashing going on between the parties. And at one point, and I don't know whether Peter was already gone or not, but there was a minor altercation between Ace and Gene on our way to the stage.
Oh, wow.
You know? And me and Eddie Belandis looked at each other at first and go, what do we do? Because you don't really want to get in between band members like get between brothers. Nobody's going to win that fight, and we aren't going to win. So we let them tussle for a minute, and then we just sort of stood in between them and let that work itself out. But then you could see there was a lot of things going on. Some self-induced by being self-indulgent. Others just the attitude of certain individuals. Here, I'll give you an example. When I first went to work for KISS, the first thing that Gene told me on the road, he sat down and he said, look, I don't care who you like, I don't care who else you work for, but every day you're working a KISS show, you will have a KISS shirt on. See, and that was his mentality. He wanted everyone to be and interpret the situation, whereas he was. Kind of hard to do, but because he ate, drank, and slept KISS. I mean, he was self-driven. It was his determination, and he couldn't understand why you, especially as being a band member, why you didn't have the same outlook as he did. You know, so I think, you know, the carryings on of, you know, making like a rock star, aside from the fiscal outlay, or when you damage shit, just the overall nuance of it rubbed Gene the wrong way. Granted, they'd get press out of it, you know, Ace being stupid, throwing things out the window, or, you know, Peter acting up. But it's not what Gene wanted to do. You know, so there was that faction already. You know, as that developed on the Ace Peter side, Gene and Paul got more demonstrative about this is not right, we're not going to tolerate this. And you could see where it was going, but we were all hoping that it didn't. You know, when the demise of Peter came, we weren't sure, but we had known that there had been talk. And, you know, I know in both instances, the two sides tried to work things out, but there was no success. I didn't know so much about Peter's, but Ace's, I know he was just upset from the time they were doing the Elvis. Previously, before that, for various reasons. But his contention was, this is not a rock album. This ain't KISS. And that caused his feelings of, I don't want to be in this band. It's not what I wanted to represent. It's not me. You know, I don't play the oboe. I don't want to be in an orchestra. So, I mean, he had that outlook, and I'm sure that because they released the album, it wasn't going to be resolved. Because he walked out, I do remember, he walked out when, at that time, you know, you're making vinyl, and while they're mastering, then there's a thing called sweetening. And while they're in there sweetening the album, he walked in, we listened to the first maybe 5 minutes, if that, turned around and walked out, didn't say a word to anybody. He was that upset with whatever was being played.
Wow. And yeah, he and Peter definitely started rebelling, you know, a few years before that.
Yeah. And remember, a lot of that too, what I just said about Gene, Paul was kind of the quiet guy. He showed his oats earlier on when I was out there, when I first got there. Then he sort of calmed down. He was looking for a soulmate. He was looking for something more tangible than the one-night stand. But Gene, well, he did what he did. Ace and Peter, they were our rock stars. They were kids, and all the stories you hear about them, and Pete Moon, and Robert Plant, all that people. So they thought that's what the rock star was. They fired at that. You know, that was their happiness. And in retrospect, you look back and go, that's pretty stupid. But at the time, who were people talking about? You're talking about Peter snorting his father's, you know. So in the rock realm, you're like, well, if you want to be cool, you got to be one of these kind of troublemaker guys, you know. And of course, Gene and Paul, Gene didn't have any of that, and I'm sure he was vocal with management about it. But you know, for Ace and Peter's part, they didn't intentionally do it to antagonize anyone in the beginning. They thought this is what rock stars do. We're going to go out and tear up the town. if I came for all the money I had to give away on behalf for him spilling bottles of champagne on people and mixing on people, not intentionally, just as he wandered through the bar. You know, I give it
I immediately think of the infamous Tom Snyder interview.
Oh, God, that's tremendous. Obviously, totally unprepared for it, but I was agreeing when I was happy George Stewart was there, road manager, Bill, and it started off kind of mellow, but as soon as Ace opened his mouth, it was over. And at the end of all of that, Snyder walks out, and, you know, Gino, like, they were in the dressing room already. Ace was standing in the hallway, carrying on, and Tom Snyder walked down and said, you know, that was the first time that I lost control of my show, but it was really good. You know, I mean, he realized he had no control, and it was one of the better shows that Tom Snyder had.
And what was it? The producers told him that Ace would be the hardest one to get to talk to.
Oh, that was, as a rule, yeah. Ace was the quiet one.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't. Ace amongst us would be very gregarious. He liked to tell jokes. He laughed at his own jokes before they were even finished, and that's just the way Ace was. But on that setting, you know, it's like, well, okay, I got to see what goes on. You know, and then of course he had a few before he went on the stage, and you know he loosened up real quick, and he just ran with the ball. and even though a lot of it doesn't seem to make sense, it was just great TV. You know, see him carrying on with the space bear and all that shit. Peter laughing it up, encouraging him. You know, and the best parts of that was when he would pan over to Gene, and Gene would give him that side eye, like, "What are you doing? You're messing up my interview." Because that's the way Gene was. He was very serious about that stuff. He was like, "This is a Kiss interview. We're going to talk like we have Utra." Shut up, Gene. You're not the big professor.
Oh yeah, he was steaming during that. You could tell.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I used to call him that when I first got in the band. Worked for the band. I used to call him the big professor. Because anything you ask him a question, you don't get an answer, you get a dissertation. Well, let me tell you. And he'd go on for 25 minutes about socks or something. Something that would have been a one-word answer. You got a whole speech. And it wasn't just me. They do that to everybody.
Oh my gosh.
It wasn't Gene's way or the highway. It was Gene's way, I'll tell you so.
Still true.
Yeah.
Steve, how are we on time?
A couple more things, and then we can start to wrap it up when you're ready.
All right, I'm sorry you cut out there at first.
I didn't hear what you said.
He cut out there at first. I didn't hear it all. I'm sorry.
No, fellas, we're cool. If you know whatever you got left is great. Otherwise, you know, when you're ready, we'll start to wrap it up.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, if you got one or two more questions, go for it.
Sure. Go ahead, Luke.
Come on, Luke, get your 2 cents in there.
I know it. I know it. I don't have any pennies on me, as it happens.
I'll make it a nickel then.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Getting away from Kiss a little bit too. I'm curious about the time with Iron Maiden. How long were you with them?
I think it was 3 years, if I remember correctly. And it was, to me, it was an important time for that because there's great similarity between what happened with Iron Maiden and what I'd already been through with Kiss when I first joined them.
Yeah.
Their notoriety was on the rise, big time, Iron Maiden. Of course, they were different people, but those things were similar. And the fact that they, had the foresight to put together, at one point they had 3 different stages, all the same, but so they could play any venue. They had an A, a B, and a C. And, depending on where we were, the capacity, you'd scale it down to make it appropriate. They were very similar to Kiss with the fans. They understood the value of the fans. Of course, they'd spend more time with them because they were more easygoing in one respect, and nobody had to worry about their faces. Once the makeup came off of Kiss and that whole thing was relaxed, they too became more engaging with the fans.
Absolutely.
And Maiden, the places that I went with them, the thing that sticks out in my mind, which is in the book, is when we went behind the Iron Curtain. You know, and one of the few bands, as far as I know, the first band to go behind the Iron Curtain with all the bells and whistles. We had the truck, buses, you know, every piece of gear that we needed, and the only thing we weren't allowed to take was merchandise. And we shot ourselves in the foot when we got off the plane because we wish we just brought some personally, because the fans were rabid. I mean, I remember I was opening my suitcase and just throwing T-shirts to people. I don't even know what's on half of them, but it didn't matter. I had one kid, he was crying, saying thank you in Polish to me. Okay, cool. You know, but I mean, that's the reception they got, and when they went there. So, you know, it was, that whole tour was a very special tour.
Absolutely.
The first tour I did with them, you got to know them. I got to try to understand them when they spoke, which was very difficult for me. For someone to speak faster than others, and that English accent just threw me. Because I'm Irish. My grandfather's from Ireland. I didn't understand half the shit he told me. Same reason, you know, that accent just played you.
Yeah.
As the Irish call it, a brogue. But you know, they didn't have as many constraints for me as working with kids. So a lot of times I had easy nights. I didn't, you know, wasn't much for me to do. One of the things I hated doing, though, was putting together soccer matches for him. I'm not a big soccer. and Steve Harris, you know, from what I was told, I don't know this, but I can't justify it, that he's a very avid soccer player and would have been good enough to play on one of the big teams. You know?
He was in the minor leagues for West Ham.
Oh, he was in the minor leagues for West Ham. I was just informed.
Wow.
So, you know, he loved the sport. Me, I didn't understand it. It was just killing my day off wherever it happened to be. But they loved it, so you got to go. And I still to this day don't understand it too much. I watched it in the last Olympics. I was like, wow, how does it work? I don't know.
Well, yeah, one last question here, and then we'll let you go.
Okay.
So, looking back at your time with Kiss and all, what would you just say your overall fondest memory or moment was out of that whole experience?
I think the fact that I got to be in the business that I wanted to be in, and with people that, even though I wasn't crazy about their music, and even Iron Maiden as well gets in here, they were respectful, and they were almost fun to be with most of the time. So that was a great thing for me. You know, I mean, I'd come across people on road crews and management types that they'd be out there on the road and they hated it. You know, they didn't like being on the road, they didn't like the scheduling, they didn't like living out of a suitcase, they didn't like the band units. You know, oh, I don't like that one, or I don't like that one. And me, I was like Eric in that respect. I loved being there. And that's, I think, why I was miffed when I left Kiss. I wanted to stay out there.
Right.
But they weren't happy. So you have to make an adjustment.
Yeah.
And also, let me interject there, when I got into the business, it was something that I really wanted to do. So I was just overjoyed at the fact, especially after I got picked up after the European tour. I said, well, this is it. I finally sort of made the big time of somewhat, you know. And I was happy because the money was great, you know, and you know, I bought first thing I did was buy my father a color television. And he was like, oh, where'd that come from? See, I told you this thing will pay off. We laughed.
That's an awesome story, man. So yeah, we want to thank you so much for coming on the show, John.
Absolutely.
You're welcome.
And we definitely look forward to having you back on down the road, follow back up after the book's out.
Absolutely.
So if there's anything you want to plug about it, go right ahead.
Eli, I sent you a text that has all the links.
Okay.
And also the Addy for the for the PledgeMusic site as well. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, kick that up there, and we're hoping for the book to be released mid to late summer. And there's a lot of good package deals on that PledgeMusic stuff that's not quite, you know, offered by other people. So I think the fans are going to find it interesting.
Yeah, I recommend everyone get over there. There's a lot of cool stuff. Not only that, but the video clips that's been posted on the site. There's some amazing stuff to watch on there too.
Cool.
So everyone go over there, pledgemusic.com/John Harte, Harte, and I will put that in our description and here on the screen as well. It'll pop up.
And guys, one more thing. We'd encourage everybody to keep stopping by the site, even if they've already pledged, because
Yes.
we are adding the new links, the new videos, and between that, John's site, Facebook, all that
Yeah, there'll
stuff.
be new things. Keep abreast of what's actually happening,
Exactly.
and when the final day will be when we can kick the book out, and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, so I think it'll be good for the fans. I know it's going to be good for me to get it out there. And that's it. Everybody go to Indianapolis to the affair there.
Yeah, we definitely hope to see you there in person. That would be awesome. Can't wait to get the copy of the book ourselves and following up from there. So very excited.
All right, great. Look forward to seeing you if I get there.
All right. Thanks again, John, and thanks, Steve.
Sure. Just get in touch with me if you need anything else.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Thanks.